Good to see y'all. Nice to have you. I didn't send out invites till a few minutes ago, so my guess is we've got our group, and it's wonderful to see all of you. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the churches, and we're gonna jump into the throne. Not jump into the throne, but that's going to be the topic for today. Just to look a little bit at the throne, hopefully, if we get to it. Depends on how much you guys talk. So let me pray. Thanks, Father, for another week that you've gotten us through and that we're able to come back together. That's not in and of itself always easy to do. And we're grateful that you give us time with community, with friends. And we get this book that you've given us to study. Help us to get it. We want to understand it. We want to understand you a little better and ourselves. So work in us today. Help us see Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So I am going to start by taking you to the end. So in chapter 20 of Revelation, we get all of these big questions. Chapter 20, chapter 21, 22. That is our final section. So we're going to jump back into chapter 1 through 3, I promise. I'm going to deal with the whole thing. We're going to jump back into 1 through 3, and then maybe we're going to get to 4, depending on how far we apply all that stuff. So I want you to think of, here's chapter 20, okay? Chapter 20 has this really important question about the millennium. Can anybody read what I write up here?
Yeah.
Okay. So it has this important question about the millennium, right? In chapter 19, there is this, well, that's the sections before. So we'll just say 1 through 19 and then 20 through 22. This is always one of those big controversial questions, right? Like, when is the millennium? When is that 1,000-year reign of Christ that's mentioned there? And the way we normally are used to thinking about it, I just haven't brought this up in a little while, is that this takes place after all of this, which makes good logical sense, right? I mean, you've got these chapters here. Here we've just done 1 through 3. Obviously, 1 through 3 is going to come before chapters 4 through 19. Right? That's the way chronology works. We're all aware of that. So if you have one chapter here, and then a later chapter, this happens, and then this happens. Okay? Rather, that's the way a lot of stories work. It's not always the way the ancient Near Eastern stories worked. Okay?
I think you're getting some sort of feedback in your room somehow. I don't.
It's from me?
Yeah. It's not from anybody else.
Interesting. Can you hear me here?
Yeah, it sounds better.
I don't know what happened. I'll just keep talking and see if it keeps coming.
Okay.
Okay, right?
Yes.
We'll see. Sorry about that. Okay, so the point is, we know the way chronology works. I just want to remind you that the book of Revelation is not intended to be a chronological book. This is not a story that starts one place and goes somewhere else. Okay, so what's happening in this book is what we call a progressive parallelism. So it's going to do this throughout the book. It's going to keep telling the same story about a revelation singular of Christ, and it's going to move forward. So there is some kind of movement, but it's also this telling you the same story over and over again. So you're going to see in here certain things are going to happen on a regular basis, right? There's going to be some sort of bad things that happen to the group, and then another time, a few chapters later, bad things are going to happen, and then another time, a few chapters later, bad things are going to happen. There's that, and they're not new experiences necessarily. They're connected to the old experiences. We'll deal with that when we get there, so I'll be more specific. But I don't want you to be thinking about chapters 1 through 3 as if this is what happens in 2024, and then when we get here, this is what happens in 2072, right? And then finally, this is what happens when we get to the year 3000 or something like that. That's just not the way the book is intended to work. Okay, so there. By the way, this happens in all kinds of books in the Bible. If you try to read Daniel chronologically, you're going to have a problem. Okay, you're going to have Daniel as, King Nebuchadnezzar. Then it's, King Darius. Then it's a Darius the second. Then it's back to Nebuchadnezzar. It's like, wait a minute, isn't that king dead already? Yeah, don't worry about that. He's telling you stories. He's giving you themes. Okay, the Gospels are a similar way. Gospels are not intended to be chronological. Maybe Luke is attempting that based on Luke chapter 1, but generally they're thematized. So they have little sections in there, and the authors have pulled these stories and set them in there because they connect to each other, which is really helpful when you're reading. If you don't know why this story is in here, you can read the story before and after it and know, oh, I see what's happening now. Okay? If you read Song of Songs, for instance, and you don't recognize that there's a giant chiasm, okay, that centers in the middle of the book of Song of Songs, that this is your key part, then you're gonna have all kinds of questions as to, like, okay, when do they fall in love? Are they married? Whoa, they're having sex way before they're married. Like, all that stuff is happening.
For a Western thinker, when I'm used to chronological, like stories being told chronologically, my question is, who on earth comes up with a storytelling process where you do not tell a story chronologically? You said it's a style of the Near East, ancient Near East. Do we have an idea? Like, okay, we have a chiastic setting. Like, is this a style of writing, or is this like just like arbitrarily just throwing in different stories at different times to tell us to prove a point?
I'll give you another example. It's called The Lord of the Rings. They start in the Shire, they go off and have an adventure, and they end up in the Shire at the end. That's a chiasm.
What's it? Inclusio.
Yes, a chiasm will generally have an inclusio. Okay, so they're using big words. So a chiasm is this A, B, C, B prime, A. So it goes to the Shire, comes back to the Shire. These would be like bookends to the rest of the story, or bookends is another word for inclusio. So those people who like to use the big words, like me, just clearing it up for the rest of it.
Was it written in that style simply because the literacy rates were non-existent and storytelling around the campfire was the way information was passed? Is it really more, instead of a Near East writing style, was it really just the way things were communicated? Is it something that simple? No. Okay.
No, I wasn't saying no. I said now. I was about to say now that I don't know the answer to, because I don't know how oral stories were told back then, and technically no one does.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes. So
Indeed. Okay.
inclusio, the premier party word thus far. Yes, that's the one Josh or Travis raised those. Yes.
What was that style that you called it a progressive what?
Parallelism.
Progressive parallelism. Okay.
So there's, the story is going to be told here. This is going to be told here, told here, told here,
Thank you.
told here, told here, told here. It's still the same story, but
Right.
it is actually moving forward a little bit. There's not like there's no chronology going on here. There's movement, but I'll show you what that is as we get to it. Okay? And there's going to be scholarly debate as to how much movement and stuff like that. I just don't want you to think chapters 1 through 3 are done, right? So we've moved past the church phase. Now we're going into the next phase necessarily. But there are, interestingly, what would you guess how many sections of the book of Revelation there are? Just a wild, crazy, insane guess, not having any clue.
3.
3 would be a great guess. What are other people's guesses?
7.
7. I saw 2 for 7 and 1 for 3. Both would be fantastic guesses, and your other most familiar one will be 10, probably. Exactly. Right. So one of those is probably right. 7 is the correct answer here. So you've got chapters 1 through 3. Okay. What's happened in 1 through 3? This is our just remembering back, right? John sees the glorified Christ, the blazing eyes, the white hair, the golden lampstands. He's standing in between, and we know what those represent. The church. That's what they've always represented, right? The people of God, God's presence with the people of God. There was always 7 candles, so there's 7, like all that stuff makes a lot of sense. Lots of references to the churches, to the people, and what it is that they're doing right and wrong. That's what we spent so much time on, right? So Travis and Josh helped me teach through those different churches. We've got those 7 in mind, and we're going to come back to those in just a second. 4 through 7. Okay, so this is Jesus and the blazing eyes and the churches, basically, right? 4 through 7 is going to be this new section. That's our newest one, and it's going to have mainly the seals. Okay, and these aren't the barking ones with a ball on their nose kind of seals. I know that's what you were thinking. These are the seals, 7 seals. John is going to be caught up into heaven today, maybe if we get through it. He's going to see God on his throne. There's going to be this, he's going to see from the bottom of the throne, and then he's going to see at the top of the throne, just like Ezekiel does. It's super cool, all that stuff that's happening. And then there's going to be the lamb, right, and the lion, and the seals are going to be broken. Dr. Dalrymple talked about all that last week as the guest storyteller, right? And okay, so that's that. And then we're going to hear all about the suffering and the persecution that happens there. Okay, so our next section is 8 through 11, I thought, but I think I just had 12 there. Oh, no, I do have 8 through 8. And these are the trumpets. Just if you were just to make a wild guess, how many seals do you think there are?
7.
7,
If you were to make a guess as to how many trumpets there are, what would be your guess?
7,
7.
Good job. Yeah. Okay, so you wouldn't even need to know that there are. You might already know, but that would be your guess. There's 7. So here's where the judgment comes. This is where God starts to get really busy. The church is avenged. The people are protected. God is victorious. All of that is happening. So this is judgments. Okay, but again, in the trumpets, you'll see some of the seals. Or maybe the 7th seal is the trumpets in some sense. Okay, so 12 through 14. Now we get to the woman and the beast. Remember, the woman is the harlot, and I'm sorry, this is the woman who gives birth to the child, and they have to run away from the dragon who's coming. Remember that? It's great storytelling. When we get to that, you'll see this beautiful thing. It actually looks like Lord of the Rings in a lot of places there. Okay, 15 through 17, 16. 16 is the bowls or the vials. Okay, and these are the wrath. And how many bowls? That's right. Brilliant people. 7, of course. And this is God's final wrath on those who still remain impenitent. So it's happening. There's the seal, the trumpet, and the vials. It's going to be continuing that progressive parallel structure. And then chapter 17 through 19 is going to be the fall of Babylon. Okay, mighty Babylon has fallen, and everybody's upset. The beasts fall, beasts that come out of the sea and come out of the land fall at this point. Everything, godlessness, empire, religion, it all falls away. That's what's happening during that time. And then you've got the dragon himself is going to fall. Dragon conquered. We've already heard about the dragon before that. He's going to be conquered, and God is going to overthrow all of his enemies, and there's going to be final judgments. And of course, the renewed universe, heaven comes down to earth, New Jerusalem, all that beautiful stuff. Okay, so this is our structure. This is our story line that is moving. I don't want you to get the idea that there's not movement. I just want you to say that this doesn't necessarily, what's happening right here doesn't necessarily come at the end. They might be telling the same story over again. So you're going to see a child born a few different times here. It's not a different child. You're going to see that half of the people's crops are going to be eaten up more than once. Actually, it's more like a third, and then it's a half. And you're just like, okay, is this happening again? It's like a third, and then a half, and then 3/4. And you're like, wait, a third, a half, and 3/4. But it was already they can't stop trying to figure that stuff out, right? That's what you're not supposed to say, okay, half is gone already, plus 1/3. So I don't even know what that is left. But then there's 3/4 of it is then wiped out later. Doesn't matter. Your donkeys might already all be dead, but they get raised to life in order to be destroyed again. That's not the way it's working. It's just rhetoric. It's just the way the story is going to be told. Okay, does that make sense? And you can see that, and there's even chapters 1 through 11 and 12 through 22 that have two kinds of different things. This almost seems to be more of a spiritual look and a more physical look. Okay? It's not clear, but it's not super, like, I'm not positive it's done that way, but a lot of scholars have looked at it that way. All right, so
Professor Broadhurst,
go
are
for it.
other apocalypses written this way in this format? Like the Apocalypse of Peter or
Are they written in some kind of a progressive structure like that?
the parallelisms? Yeah, the progressive parallelism.
That's a really good question that I don't know the answer to either.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, let's get back to the Old Testament, and I'll be able to answer more of these questions probably.
Yes, sir.
You should write them all down with Dr. Dowrick. Well, I'm asking him to come back every 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, of course, you've got him on speed dial, Josh, so it's nice to have friends. All right. So let's go back to chapters 1 through 3, what Jesus was saying to the churches. Let's remind ourselves what he did say to the churches before we kind of talk about it. I promised you that we try and apply it a little bit, much as you want to apply it. So we've got Sardis and Laodicea. The world is triumphing on, against them. Their light is pretty much gone. Ephesus still shining, but starting to diminish. Some little problems there. Pergamum and Thyatira, lots of temptation, but the light's still shining. Not as much as it once did, but still shining. And then Smyrna and Philadelphia, lots of loyalty to Christ, lots of doing their duty as light bearers, right? So Jesus is still there and very powerful. All right, so that's what's going on. Do you remember what the problems were in each of these churches or any of the churches? And I don't care which one's which, just any of the problems that they had.
The lukewarm.
One of them's lukewarm. That's a good one. Okay. Lukewarm.
Not loving each other like they should.
Good. Not loving.
They lack discipline.
Lacked discipline. Excellent. Yep. I think I have all 3 of those written down.
I have in my notes, they were intolerant, and that seemed to be a theme through there.
Good. Intolerant. Yep.
They were messing around with other gods and other
Yeah, bearing
people
false
like
false witness.
prostitutes,
Good.
Jezebel.
Jezebel, yeah.
Okay. Sexual immorality and food immorality. Yep. All right. So that's a bunch of them. That's good. So the things that they're struggling with at this time are persecution from just antichrists. Remember that there are antichrists. There are not revelations, but there are antichrists. So whenever you talk about the Antichrist, I'm always going to say, what do you mean the Antichrist? There are lots of antichrists. They're all throughout the Bible. But there is an Antichrist that is talked about here, which we'll get to as well. I know that's the exciting stuff, the 666 and the forehead signs on our forehead and all that stuff. So they're worried about that. They're worried about Roman religion. Really, I should have just put empire worship. These are temptations for them, right? Just to be to give in to the persecution, to compromise because of persecution, to compromise because everyone else is doing this empire worship kinds of stuff, and then just these kinds of things. These just normal, physical things. Those are things that are constantly tempting them to compromise their beliefs in Jesus and go their own way. And so they're called to be filled with discipline, right? You said they lack discipline. To be intolerant in the right way, right? To not tolerate these other gods that are coming in. To be prepared to be persecuted even to death. Each one of the churches, right? If they overcome, big word, overcome. Blessed are those who overcome, for then they will get the hidden manna, the white robe, the crown of life, right? The tree of life, those different things. You get all those things if you overcome. The call to the churches, to Christians, is to make sure you make it to the end, right? We don't need to talk about Calvinism right now, once saved, always saved kinds of things. The call is to conquer, to make it to the end. And it's gonna be hard. Okay, so let's keep that stuff up there. Let's ask questions of your own churches if you want to share these things, or churches that you've been a part of, or if you just want to make it generic, you can just make something up. But which of these descriptions of these churches, which one fits? Like, can you name a church that you know of that fits any of these problems or any of these great successes? And again, I don't want to hear your particular church. I want to hear Warsaw Church or Winston-Salem or whatever. Okay, but do you have an example of where the churches are falling in any of these areas, failing?
Well, I think we're not worshiping idols, but we certainly have idols in our life. And so we are idolatrous.
Okay,
I think there's the Christian nationalism for like empire worship. We have republic, and that's what the America is. But we have definitely have some idolatry in that regard.
yeah, we're nationalists. That which is not patriots, right? It's okay to be a patriot. It's okay to love your country, but a nationalist is an elitist. Somebody who says only my country matters, or my country matters more than other people's countries do.
Our God.
Yeah, it becomes our God. But I think a lot of people are nationalists who would never say it's our God, right? Just like a lot of people are idol worshipers who would never say I worship idols. It's this slow and steady creep that comes into, and we don't even necessarily realize we're doing it. And so it's a call, I think, to all of us to be careful of those couple things. Yeah, any others?
Oh,
Westboro Baptist Church.
What was that?
Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah,
doesn't-
that's California, dude. They're vicious.
Yeah, Westboro. Okay, what's the where are they lacking?
They're not really loving anyone.
Yeah, okay, not loving. Good. Yep.
That intolerance, I see it every day all over.
Yeah, in the churches, yeah. Yeah, so far, all of these things you said, not loving, nationalistic, idolatrous, and intolerant, I see them all in my church, and I get to lead that one.
Yeah, but I see. I don't. Okay.
And that doesn't mean it's 100% of those people, right? I mean, of course, that's not the case, and nobody is really all of those, probably, but I see it. I see it. It's in the air. By the way, it was in the air in the Warsaw Church and in the California Church and in my Maryland church, all of which you got. Like, these
Is it worse now than, let's say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in everybody's opinion?
I think nationalism is a whole lot more powerful now than it was.
I think so too.
The next step after nationalism is fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a progression there, and that's where it leads. That's what that's the fear of nationalism leads to fascism. That's the biggest scare.
I'm not sure that we're actually less loving now than we were 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago, but it looks like it because media is different, and we're no longer ashamed of a lot of the things that we thought before, so we're willing to say them out loud.
Yeah, I'll argue we are, because we look to the government, we looked at .gov to solve our problems instead of the church or to our neighbor to help us out. In my world, in the community I grew up and was raised with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know about everybody else's experience, but that's one thing I've noticed over the last 30, 40 years. Reliance on government, which is to me a very uncaring kind of one size fits all, which is not loving.
Good.
Tolerance of sin
Yeah.
within the church.
Yeah, we definitely tolerate more and more. Seems like, anyway, it looks like it.
I think lukewarm characterizes every church that I have been part of in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, Where do we hear about the 10 Commandments anymore?
My church.
My
I'm
church.
teaching it right now.
You do? You are?
I,
God bless
we're,
you.
we're doing it in our small group.
Are you really?
Yep.
That's good.
The name of it is Love Carved in Stone.
Love carved in stone. Beautiful.
Not like
I that.
commandments, but God's love to his people
Yeah.
to help them live and know who their God is.
Mm.
which is a much better way of looking at it than commandments. First of all, the word doesn't even mean commandments.
Right.
It's 10 devarim, which just means words, the 10 words. And the whole idea of law in the Old Testament is not how we think of it today. It's so much not that. So
I knew you have a bunch of stuff to say about that comment. Right
I-
there.
we did a seven section, actually, I think, right? 7, because we had to do 7 on law and wisdom and how they work together. But I'd love to think that through more, do that again sometime. That was
Well, we could go ahead and do the second Torah. We haven't done that yet.
the second Torah.
Yeah.
Where's that? I'm in.
Deuteronomy.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't touched that. We could talk about that one. That'd be cool. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So this is what our churches look like. I'm going to ask you a different question. Which one of the self-designations of Jesus meant the most to you? Remember how he titles himself? Can we remember any of those? You've probably got a Bible in front of you. You came to this Bible study ready. What are the things that, what are the things we can say about Jesus? What did he say? The one who holds the,
Holds the spirits and the stars.
okay,
First to last,
okay,
who was dead and has come to life.
dead,
The light of our world.
light of the world.
Son of God who doesn't sees through your BS. The
What?
blazing eyes.
Okay,
Sharp two-edged sword.
well, that's what he holds, yeah.
No, he doesn't hold it. It's in his mouth.
Correct. He holds it with his teeth. Okay,
He's our high priest intermediary.
Yeah. Loves us and freed us from our sins.
good.
Yes, ma'am. Died for us.
Alpha and Omega, who was, is, and always will be. Oh, he's already said that. Sorry.
That one. No, that's all right. It's worth repeating. It's a good one.
Who opens and, what does it say? Who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one can open.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
True witness,
What? You got another one?
faithful and true witness, beginning of God's creation. The Amen.
Beginning of God's creation, Alpha. Okay. Good. The Amen.
Son of Man.
Yes.
All right. Let's look at these. You got enough, unless you find another one that you really want to grab hold of. High priest, intermediary, holds the spirits and the stars. He opens the door and it never shuts, or he shuts doors that are that need to be that were open. He's the Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end. The Amen. He was dead, now he's alive. Faithful and true witness, light of the world, Son of Man, Son of God, the blazing eyes. He holds sharp two-edged sword, and he loves and frees us from our sins. Which one of these grabs you? And they're all beautiful, of course. But you as a person, or you in a church, are going to have one of these probably that hits you differently depending on where you're at in your life.
High priest intermediary.
That's the one,
Yes.
Josh.
Yeah, for sure.
That he comes in between us and God. Steps in.
And he lights our way.
All right, he lights our way. Okay, so feeling, that's especially true of someone who feels like they're in the darkness sometimes.
Loves us and takes away our sins, gives us our freedom.
Loves and frees us.
Amen.
Amen.
Like the faithful and true witness.
Yeah, I mean, in a world of deception and lies, faithful and
Mhm.
true would be really nice right now, wouldn't it?
Mm.
I feel that heavy.
Yes, sir.
I have no idea who to trust about anything anymore.
Mm.
God, everything.
What was that?
Trust God in everything.
Oh, yes, amen. Yep. That much I do, because he's a true and faithful witness, wherever that one is on there. Yeah. Faithful and true witness. Yeah. Any of those other grab you?
The living one, I was dead and am alive again.
Yeah, the living one. That's a good one. Especially those who are feeling like either dead, like metaphorically, feeling spiritually like, ugh, yeah, or who are feeling like they're in their last, like physical, like they're getting closer to death. That would hit some of us very differently, right? Some of us old people that are 51 are starting to feel that.
Wait until you're my age. Mhm.
I will wait. It's going to be what,
Jim has been reminding us that we're closer to seeing the face of Jesus than we used to be.
that is accurate. That's true.
My Sunday school teacher, he's reminded us a couple of Sundays recently.
Yeah, Jim Johnson. Yeah.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
closer to seeing the face of Jesus than we have been.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to share about that first section, 1 through 7? I'm sorry, 1 through 3? Because now we get to go into the second section. At least we get to start it. So the second section is going to be about this tribulation. These trials that are going to be coming. And as you know, tribulation and trials are part of church history. That's nothing unusual. There's no like tribulation today that's so much worse than a tribulation before, or vice versa. Like it's just part of what we are. Anytime a church is faithful, there's going to be trials. There's going to be problems. Okay? I recognize this a lot as a pastor in a church. Okay, when things really start getting messed up, when there's real problems that are hitting, sometimes I wonder if that's not like Satan working overtime. Okay, faithful and true witnesses are going to be hit pretty hard because things might be happening, things might be good. So, and we need these things. We need these trials from the world because they're going to purify us. They're going to make us look more like Jesus. That's why some of you chose to get married, because your spouse will make you look more like Jesus, perhaps. They are kind of difficult sometimes to live with. Nobody's going to raise their hands, but you know it's true. So just don't say anything right now. Okay. And thanks, Carl. I was feeling a little alone there, so good. Yeah, we say that all things work together for good, right? But it's hard for us to remember that. It's hard for us to really believe that sometimes. And those are just trite sayings. We act as if the destiny of the world is all on mankind's shoulders and not God's sometimes. This is how we enter into chapter 4. I want us to be thinking about these things because these are written, chapter 4 and 5 are written to help us have a correct understanding of what's going on in the messiness of life, in our trials. So people are like, oh, Revelation is about millennium, it's about 666, about Antichrist, about beasts, it's about dragons. Oh, let me make sure that you understand, right? Revelation is about people going through persecution and being told, it's okay, I've got you. Right? It's the most comforting book. It's a reminder not to get involved with all that other stuff, of course, but it's a reminder that God's got them. That, here I'll say it like this, there is one throne to rule them all. Okay, just because we were on the Lord of the Rings kind of kick already today, we've mentioned it a couple times. One throne to rule them all. That's what we enter when we enter into chapter 4. It's a new scene. Okay, we don't know exactly where John's been, what's been happening. Remember, anytime that John moves, right, we don't have to believe that he's actually moving from place to place, that he's actually going up into heaven. You can, that's fine. But also that's literary license. Okay, you can be just like walking around on earth and having a good time, and all of a sudden you can be like in some sort of a trance and thinking about Jesus, and then all of a sudden you can be in an even deeper trance and you can see like in heaven. You can look around and see heaven. Okay, there's different levels, and that's how apocalyptic writing works. Okay, so that it doesn't mean that he's necessary. Like Ezekiel probably wasn't technically grabbed by his hair and taken into the field to look at the people with dead bones. Okay, like he's not flying across like with his hair sticking up. I mean, it's a cool picture, but it probably isn't actually happening like that. That's just an apocalyptic way of saying something. All right, so here it is. One throne rules the world. Chapter 4, verse 1. Here it goes. After this, that is all the churches, the blazing, fiery, all that stuff. I looked, and lo, in heaven, an open door. Just a reminder, God is the one who can shut and open doors. We just heard that, right? In chapter 2 and 3. An open door, and the first voice which I had heard, speaking to me like a trumpet, said, come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this. All right, so come up here is a geographical call, right? It's a movement word, come up here. So all of a sudden he's there, he looked, he sees in heaven an open door. Maybe he's, I don't know, maybe it's like Stephen, when he looks up into heaven and he sees, remember all that? Everything's open. Maybe that's what's happening. We don't know for sure. And then he's going to go up, like maybe through the open door, and he's going to be up there. So there's that movement from earth to seeing into that realm to being in that realm. So I will show you what must take place after this. So time word as well. Okay, that is what's coming. And this is going to be, there's stuff that's going to be coming. So here he is, he's on earth. We don't know for how long. He has this vision, but he's not yet in the spirit, some intermediate kind of state, probably aware of his surroundings, probably just like Stephen, he knows what's going on here. And he is to come and see a new vision. Not a new revelation of Christ, but a new vision, something a little bit new. And not a literal vision, or else this lamb we're going to meet has 7 horns and all that stuff. We don't have to think like that. They're images to grab our attention. At once, verse 2, at once I was in the spirit, and lo, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. Okay, we're in the thick of it now. Okay, here it is. The throne is here. It's standing in heaven, and there's someone seated on the throne. Okay, the main message here. You tell me what the main message of a throne in the middle of heaven is. Why do we care about a throne? What does a throne stand for?
King.
A king. What's the message here?
God is
Yeah.
king.
God is king, right? I
And
mean,
he's in the center of everything.
yeah, we don't know that yet, but that's coming. You're exactly right.
His center is everywhere and his circumference is nowhere.
Say that again.
His center is everywhere and his circumference is nowhere.
I don't really know what that means.
Mhm.
All right, good. Okay, so this just the simple child version of this should be a huge comfort if you're going through trials, right? This is, I'm Jehovah, I am God, and here, for those people going through this tribulation, that's coming in chapter 6. We're going to hear about that pretty soon, not for a couple more weeks. The throne is at the center of the spiritual universe. The word throne is going to show up 17 times in the next 2 chapters. It's significant. Okay, I wish it had shown up 7 or 10 or something like that. That would have been even cooler, but it doesn't. 17 times in these 2 chapters. And the vision is definitely, well, where's the throne at? You tell me this. Where do thrones take place? Where are they usually at?
They're in heaven.
No, a regular throne.
Oh, and the
Throne room.
In a throne room.
In a palace of the king.
Right, of the king. Okay, other people don't have thrones unless they're talking about the throne, again, I'm not talking about that kind of throne. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's gonna be in a palace. But God doesn't have a palace. Where's God's palace on earth?
It's our bodies. His temple is made without hands.
The temple.
Our
Okay.
heart.
Okay. Yes, let's not go there yet. But that's 100% correct. That is 100% correct. But I want us to think about what he's seeing. He's not seeing our heart. He's not seeing people right now. He's seeing a throne, like an actual throne. At least that's his vision of it. And it's sitting in heaven, because he's entered into heaven. And what you're supposed to see, what you're supposed to realize is that John has just walked into the temple. Okay, you remember this happening in Isaiah 6? This is going to catch a lot of Isaiah 6 and some of Ezekiel at the same time. Isaiah 6, do you remember this? I saw the Lord lofty and exalted, sitting on the throne, the train of his robe filling the temple. And then we have some angelic beings. Remember that? And do you remember? What do they say?
Holy, holy, holy.
Holy, holy, holy.
It's the Lord God Almighty.
Lord God Almighty. Right. You guys know that song. It's powerful. Like, that's all in Isaiah. It's the calling of the prophet. That's what's happening right here for John. John is being called apart as a prophet. So he's going to see God. Okay, now here's the way the throne room works. Okay, in Ezekiel, you have Ezekiel here on earth. Okay, and you have this giant. I haven't tried to diagram this before, so I have no idea what it's going to end up looking like. All right, but you have this space he's able to see into, and the throne. How would I do that? I don't know, maybe like this. Go in, and then just kind of like, and then we come out here, and then we get thrown here. This would be the seat. Right? So it just kind of, it comes through, so you can see the bottom of the throne for Ezekiel. You can see, and what he'll see is, of course, wheels and eyes, and you remember all that? Wheels and the eyes, and then faces with four different beings. You remember all that stuff from Ezekiel? All that weird stuff happening? Okay, you can go look it up when you're done here. But this is what's happening. He can see into heaven. But now for John is coming up, and he's able to see the whole thing. It looks like, anyway. All right, we don't know, but he can see that he's grabbing hold of some of those ideas. All right. Now, I said it's the middle of the spiritual universe, and some of you said there's circumference, there's other things happening. So we're in the temple, and he who sat there appeared like jasper and carnelian, and round the throne was a rainbow that looked like an emerald. Okay, so let me ask you, I'm going to back up for a second. I'm going to write 4 things on the board, and I want you to tell me what they mean. Okay, first of all, thrones. I already did that one. Okay, if I were to put the word 24 or 7 torches, or what are the other ones that I have on? Oh, in this case, shiny stones. You're only 3 chapters into this book. Can you just, not having any context for these, even though you just read shiny stones, what might these stand for? Symbols with no context. What might they stand for? What's shiny stone?
I was going to go the 12 tribes and the 12 apostles on the 24.
Excellent. Yep. You know it's probably 12 times 2 in some way, and that might be the exact reason for it. And I think you're right. We'll get there in just a second. I think you're exactly right. So without any knowledge of, I mean, you may have had tons of extra knowledge, but I mean, you can already see something here. You can already see, what are 7 torches?
Light.
7
Fire.
lamps. Fire.
Yeah, the Torah, or not the Torah, the
churches.
Yeah,
the churches, yeah,
or the spirits.
yeah, that he's written about.
Yeah, he's already been
And
talking about stuff.
the menorah has
Menorah.
7
That's
candles.
exactly right. And that's,
So there's a lot of sevens.
this is,
You know, it's the complete number. It's, you know,
good. Yep. Where are shiny stones? Anything about shiny stones that you know?
Diamonds.
Diamonds, yeah. Diamonds,
God's creation.
all right, creation. Yep. Okay, obviously shiny meaning like they're bright, so they're giving off luminescence of some kind, not literally, but they're shiny. Okay, and they're specific ones in this case, right? They're carnelian and jasper,
Jasper. Yeah.
okay, which are both, you might not know this information, but those are
The
both.
Hosen.
What?
They're from the Hosen. They're from the priest breastplate.
Yeah,
That's where all the shiny
Oh.
stones go.
Oh,
there are 12 stones on the breastplate, and these are 2 of them. So he could have told you all 12 if you wanted to, but that wasn't the point. The point was to get you thinking in that direction.
okay.
And where do you hear about rainbows?
Oh.
After the
Noah.
flood.
Okay.
Noah, yeah.
Yep. Flood. So Genesis 6 through 9. And it's a symbol of what?
Creation.
Hope.
Yeah.
Covenant.
Salvation.
Covenant. Yes.
Covenant.
Good answer, everybody.
Yeah.
Covenant. Right? This is his promise. Sealed this in the air. And the rainbow is one of 2 things, probably. It's a bow, as in it's a bow pointed at God, right? He's saying, you know, stick a needle in my eye. I promise to do this. It's that. It's a covenant oath. Or perhaps it's the multicolored rakia that is over the, this is the rakia.
I think of like Aldous Huxley.
Chapter
Doors,
1.
I think of like Aldous Huxley and Doors of Perception. Like this is kind of hallucinatory for like John's having this vision. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot to be said there with that. I don't want to go into that though because I don't think it's proper.
Chase, after we talk about this, can we talk about how, you know, how when you say God, do you visualize God? How do you visualize God in your mind?
I don't. I try not to.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we have a picture of him, right? We've been given a picture of some sense. We've been a picture of through Jesus.
Yeah. Well, it's a man, and after I was over by the Sea of Galilee, I changed my picture of him. But God, to me, I just see light.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You know, it's light and not really rainbow, but light. And I wondered if other people, you know, have a vision, a visual of, you know, when they're talking about God on his throne, you
It's
know,
funny
other
because-
than what these things.
A rainbow is just different shades of light, so it's kind of like it encompasses all light. So yeah, so that's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
Mhm.
Yeah, my picture is unfortunate from growing up with little Chick tracks. So that's the picture that immediately steps into my mind, which is horrifying to me. It's a picture of God on the throne, but he doesn't have a face. It's just a round head because they don't want to picture him. And then there's just light coming out. So
I think of like the infinite integer of pi. That's it. It's like
so you're picturing a number. Okay. Good.
infinite number.
Yeah. Okay.
Wings and kind eyes.
Kind eyes.
Those I see in Jesus, you know.
Oath.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so he's got these 2 shiny stones, which are among the 12 stones on the breastplate. And around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clad in white garments with golden crowns upon their heads. So let's see if we can make a picture of this. I think that probably would be. All right, so God comes, John comes into the room and he sees the Father right in the middle, right? It's the throne. We don't know anything about the lamb yet, but I'm just gonna tell you, he's off to the side, right? But he's next to in some ways. That's probably the lamb somewhere over here, right? And then we have these stones. Okay, some stones here. And we have a rainbow. And now we have these, I'm not gonna write every single one of these, but we've got 24 different elders. Okay, how does it describe them? Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders. So I should have made these all shared. These are all thrones as well. Okay, so now there's throne and then 24 other thrones. We've already talked about what the 24 might symbolize, 12 plus 12, and maybe apostles. I think this is what Steve said, and tribes. So that is new dispensation, old dispensation. Okay, seems pretty reasonable. Doubling the amount of 12 is a good way of doing this. Why are they on thrones? I mean, only God is on the throne. One throne to rule them all, I said. How come they get thrones?
Didn't many of them pay the ultimate price?
Okay. Well, why do you get thrown if you pay the ultimate price?
Well, because you're held in high regard by God then.
Okay.
I mean, you know, earlier we started this, your comment, you made a pretty insightful comment. You did. It was insightful. Where is it? The churches are called to overcome, you know, all the sins that they had, those churches were. And as our Christians, as are we, the
Good.
laity,
Yeah.
they had not only overcome, they gave it all for the most part. Not necessarily their life in every instance, but pretty much their lives, their livelihoods.
That's right. That's good. Overcoming.
So
Even
yeah,
if-
so you know, they gave everything for for Jesus.
All
In
right.
many
So
cases are forgotten.
So you're saying because they gave everything, they now get a throne. Where is the connection between sacrifice, giving it all, and the throne? Where do you get the idea? Where does anyone get the idea that elders will be on a throne? Where does that concept
They were given their place in heaven.
come? Okay. Does that mean they get a throne? Is that what you're expecting, to get a throne?
No,
Well, I think it's
People are special.
says if you those who overcome are faithful unto death will receive a crown of life.
Okay.
And
So
so
there's a crown. Yep.
yeah,
It does say the crown's right here, right?
and I think by
Yeah.
proxy, if you have a crown, you get a throne.
Good. So
Yeah,
there's the
and it's-
connection.
that's it.
From one of the churches. There's at least two connections.
They're elders. They're crowned. They're elders. I mean,
So elders just means older people, right? So these are old people
okay,
that are on thrones. Okay, I mean, yes,
Okay.
of significance, that obviously they're significant, so they wouldn't even be mentioned. So, and elders are the wise, you know, the people of significance. So let's go back further though. I want you to think through the story of the Bible. Where do thrones? What's the idea of thrones? Is this something that we should be expecting before Revelation comes? You know C.S. Lewis, right? You guys have read Chronicles of Narnia?
Yeah.
What's the great hope in the Chronicles of Narnia that they've been waiting for?
Sons of Adam and daughters of Eve will take their rightful place on the thrones at Cair Paravel.
I could not have said it any better than that. That just sounded powerful. That's exactly right. Right? That's what we've been waiting for. So why does C.S. Lewis use that imagery? He got it from somewhere, right?
Genesis,
Cool. What?
Genesis.
Genesis. Yes. Where?
In the beginning.
That's right, in the very beginning. Remember this, right? Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, 27, and 28, right? Yes, good. Delegated authority, ruling and reigning. Exactly, Mary. What does Genesis 1:26 say? Let us. Someone else turn to it.
Make a man, someone like ourselves, to be the master of all life upon the earth and in the skies and in the seas.
Okay. That's how verse 26 says?
Yep,
What version is that?
it's my book. The book.
The book. Okay, so not a version, a paraphrase. Okay, that's pretty cool. I like the way it paraphrased it. All right, so if the rest of you are looking it up, it'll say something like, let us make man in our
Image.
image, right?
In our likeness.
In our
Verse
likeness.
28.
And then you get to verse 28. Yeah.
Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and every living creature that crawls on the earth. Here throughout the whole earth, I am giving you as food and seed, so on and so forth.
Okay. Here's our two words in verse 26 and verse 28. Image or likeness. These actually are different words, but I don't think you care about the differences between them. And we have to get into a stele in the ancient Near East and how that works, and you don't care. So it doesn't matter. We'll just say that they're mostly the same thing. God is making them in his image, which means not that he's making them look like you. Okay, that's not it. He doesn't have hands, arms, etc. He is calling you to be like him, or like in their world, the Pharaoh would have been someone who's created in the image of God. And they would have just escaped the Pharaoh. So this is a reminder. Actually, I'm heading into this sermon for New Year's Eve. Actually, this is a reminder to them that they also are made in the image of God, not just the Pharaoh. That is, they have worth in and of themselves because they're made after God's image, just like Pharaoh is. All humankind is meant to be someone like God, okay, to stand next to him, to be a part of him, or as we get to verse 28, to subdue, to be a vice regent. The whole goal of all of creation, of the whole story, is that you will be kings and queens. That's the plan. The problem is, within 2 chapters, that plan goes bye-bye. Right? By the time we get to chapter 3, Adam has rejected the throne. He said, I'm out. Right? Actually, he gets kicked out, but he said, I am out right before that by not listening, by not following the wisdom, not actually considering himself to be an image bearer the way he should be. Instead, he starts listening to a false prophet, a snake. Okay, so the whole goal of all of the story is to get back to Eden and get back to the throne. And God has been keeping them from that and calling them to that at the same time throughout all of the story. And he's trying to show them that there is going to be one person who's going to be rightfully put on the throne, right? The Lamb, wherever my lamb is. Okay. But the Lamb's idea is to live, to die, and to live again, to be the Alpha and the Omega, to be all those things that we just talked about. He's going to lift up these 24 elders so that they can get seats on the throne. Back to what was the original plan of all of creation, that we would represent God in the world. So remember that these animals are not necessarily animals in Genesis. They're all representative things. There's stuff going on in the story. It's a story about Israel and Israel being rulers, being representatives of mankind, holding up the mirror so that God, shines his light down and the light shines out to everybody else. That angled mirror that Tom Wright talks about sometimes.
What would you say the image is then, if it's not hands and feet? Is it something like? Or let me just ask that a question. What would you say the image is?
That's it.
Vice Regent.
Yeah, you're a king like he's a king.
Okay.
You're made to be a king. You're made to rule on earth as he's, remember our throne, right? Throne goes through the clouds, whatever. You are made to sit on the throne. Right now you're down here on earth, but the idea is that you will be in this heavenly place. And I don't mean up, because this place is going to come down. So this whole idea of a rapture of you going up is missing the point. It's all about you supposed to come down.
And the opposites are true, because look what I was thinking is what, and this is via Rob, like it's the kingdom that's not of this world, and it's ruling not how you think. It's
Upside down kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. So it's this like, yeah. So yeah, that's the image though. It's the
Yeah, how will you subdue? By being a true and faithful witness, by being a light bearer, by being
sacrificial love.
That's right, by giving, by dying and living again. All those things.
You actually live by dying. It's
Yeah.
like these opposite. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's complex, but it's beautiful.
Okay, so this is important to the whole story. Ask yourself, wherever you're at in the Bible, where is this relevant? How is this fitting in? The goal is that we will become vice regents of God. Well, actually, we are. We are made into new. We are vice regents. We are partnering with God to show creation who he is. So in Greco-Roman times, in ancient Near Eastern times, this is what a king would do. He would create a statue, an image, a likeness of himself, and he would put it into the middle of the city. And it would be a reminder that the king, even though the emperor lives hundreds of thousands of miles away or wherever, this is his place. And then he'd put a statue there, and he'd also leave a king there, like Herod, for instance. Remember, Herod works for the emperor. If Herod decides to do something against the emperor, he's going to be removed. Some new king is going to be put in. That king better darn well represent the emperor, Octavian, in the case of Herod, right? You better be representing him well, or he's going to be removed. Adam, you better represent me well. By the way, that's what that commandment is. That's the third commandment. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Okay, it has nothing to do with saying bad words. Okay, it's talking about how you represent God, how you bear or carry his name.
So we rule by serving.
We rule by serving. That's absolutely true. By sacrificing, even more.
Is subdue a good translation, or is it more stewarding?
So that's going to be the translation of subdue is fine, I think. It's going to be more of an application question. So it is kingship language here. But the goal, if you think of the word subdue as a pressing down, like how a king is often seen to subdue, to put people in their place, then that's not a good word. Absolutely. So I think I thought I heard that was from Lori, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So steward is probably a better word for those of us who don't think of subdue as a good word, right? Subdue sounds painful. Okay, but that's not it. It's take care of creation, right? What Adam was called to do was to avad and shamar, or to guard and to serve.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Because I would say we have subdued nature.
Well, that's
We have
happening.
subdued nature, but you really have done a lot of destruction.
Right. So in that case, forget the word subdue.
Yeah.
Let's go with Lori's word, steward, right? Care for, care of, guard it. But these are the same words that the Levites are told to do in the temple, right? They were called to avad and shamar. That is to take care of the temple and to protect it. So that's what Adam does. This is what the Levites do. It's what you're called to do in creation. And it definitely can connect to stewarding to the world, like making gardens and doing all those things. But it also has to do with like people, relationships.
So it's like baking cookies for your neighbor.
Yes, bringing cookies for your neighbor. Yep. Stewarding the message, Paul will talk about, right? Caring for the message. And what's the best way to protect the gospel message? It's certainly not to put it in a safe and hide it, right? The way to protect the gospel message is to put it out there because it's powerful. It does its own work. So, okay, we're far afield, but I think that was really important to grasping what the throne is all about. So God's on the throne. He has the Old and the New Testament, maybe, right? It's definitely 24, 12 times, or 12 plus 12. 12 two times, double the amount. So, the 12 disciples are based on the 12 tribes. That's why it's important that the 12 is there. So when one of the disciples disappears, right, Judas, they bring in, they immediately have to vote in another one. Okay, there's hundreds of disciples at that point. They had to pick between two. Which one's the one we're going to do? Well, they're both disciples. No. Which is the one that's going to be called one of the 12? Because we got to have 12. Everyone knew you got to have 12 because 12, right? It's a symbol of what's happening. So yeah, I think it's for all time. It's those people who have conquered, who have been called to be vice regents, who are called to steward or subdue, called to be image bearers, and have made it through. That's what's going on there. But there's another ring. Except that ring. There's another ring on the outside of that one. Right? I've got not very much time, right? It was just 5 minutes. Let's see here. Let's talk about the throne. We're not going to get to it. It doesn't matter. Okay.
That sea of glass.
Yeah. Wait, is that verse 5? Oh, we got to do
4.
you have to do 5. From the throne, flashes of lightning and voices and peals of thunder, and before the throne burned 7 torches of fire, which are, we already know what they are, right?
Yeah.
7 spirits of God. You didn't even need him to tell you that, but he's just reminding you what he's already told you. That's what that is. So thunder and lightning, what does that remind you of? Thunder and lightning in a location. Where does that happen?
Giving the commandments.
That's exactly right. Sinai.
Yeah.
Right. So again, remember what's happening here. We've got God on the throne in Eden, putting his vice regent there, the sanctuary of God. We've got torches in the tabernacle and the temple as well in Exodus chapters 27 and following through 40. And in Exodus 19 through 21, 22, we have this Sinai and Moses is climbing up. Each time when you're going into the presence of God, right, there's some sort of light, some sort of fire that is there to represent God. So, and this is, peals of thunder, 7 torches of fire, awesomeness. You don't need all the little symbols in here to feel this, do you? Right? Even if you didn't know what any of these things symbolized, you'd be able to get a big feeling for this is God in the center of everything, and it's powerful. And you want to be careful when you're going in here. Remember, John's going to get a little worried about all this.
When we talked about the image of God, okay, in the morning when I go into my car and it's idling, it's warming up, and I have my coffee in the center console, okay, it's full, and I see just the vibration of the car creates in my coffee a center like the F, which kind of spins in concentric circles around it, evenly spaced. Okay, this is the vibration. And so the fact that you have this written on here, yeah. So that, and I always thought when I would look at it, I go, that's God. I for some reason, I don't know why. I just, to me, I just said I never told anybody this. I'm saying it now, but that to me, I go, that's God. And then so you showing me this right here on the board, I'm like tripping out right now. I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go.
Cool. All of you are going to remember this when you have your coffee tomorrow, right? So whenever it starts shaking, you're going to see those center circles, and you're going to remember about God, or a dinosaur's coming, and Jurassic Park. I knew that. All right, so that's what's happening. So you're going to see all that. Okay, let's get to, because I think Fran already said it. And before the throne, there is, as it were, a sea of glass like crystal. All right. So now we have a sea of glass. What is that?
The Crystal Cathedral in Southern California.
No cooler. That's right. Yeah. This is one we don't know, huh? All right. So it's in Ezekiel chapter 1. It's actually in a lot of other places too, but verse 22, it says, spread out above the heads of the living creatures was what looked like an expanse, sparkling like ice and awesome. Under the expanse, their wings were stretched out one towards another. Each had 2 wings covering its body. When the creatures moved, I heard the sound of their wings like the roar of rushing waters, like the voice of the Almighty, like the tumult of an army. When they stood still, they lowered their wings. All that stuff, we're going to visit that again next week when we get to this next verse, because we're about to see some creatures, right? That's starting in at the end of verse 6, right? But we're only halfway through there. So that's in Ezekiel and Job 37. If you can beat me to it, go for it. Job 37, verse 18. Where's Job? Psalms.
Nobody knows.
Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job.
Nehemiah, Esther, Job. Oh, I'm in a totally wrong spot. Somebody find it for me, because I can't find it. Job 37, 18. It's before Psalms. There we go. Job 37, 18. Hebrew scholar here, can't figure out where the book of Job is. Let's see. Can you join him in spreading out the skies? Hard as mirror of cast brown. Hard as a mirror of cast bronze. Okay, so we've got, remember how the Old Testament talks about the sky, and it's the waters of the heavens and the waters of the earth, right? So this is like bronze, like hard as glass, hard as solid and shiny is the idea here. But think back to the actual, like what is called a sea in the Old Testament? You might not know this.
Chaos.
Chaos is actually called a sea. That's really good. Yep. That's not, in this case, that's not what's going on, but it's going to be what's going on later on in Revelation. But in the Old Testament, there are 2 pieces. As you enter into the tabernacle, you enter into the outer courts before you go in. There are 2 pieces that are outside. Do you know what those 2 things are? Got this mess here now, don't I? When you enter in, it looks something like that, right? Depending on whether it's the temple or the tabernacle, depends on whether it's square, cubed, and all that stuff. You can figure all that stuff on your own. But outside here, there are 2 things. Enter into the gates. Okay, into the tent. Into the tent. There are 2 things. One is called the altar or the earth. Very interesting to me. Okay, you go and look these up. You're going to find them. We don't have time to do this now. It's already 9:15. This one is called a laver or the sea. Okay, so it's this earth and the sea. So this is everything that's on earth. It's the stuff that you can see in the outer world. Okay, what happens is you go into God's presence, and here you're going to see kind of God's presence. We call it the holy place, right? So it's a set apart place. It's this different place. And then we get all the way into here. This is where the Ark of the Covenant is, right? With angels on the top. Yeah, you've seen it, Indiana Jones, you know what it looks like. This is melt stuff. So this is the Holy of Holies. This is where you get all the way in. So this is kind of like the sky. In fact, this is painted, this is sewn into the curtains here, are angelic figures and stars. There's stars, by the way, over here. And you've got the menorah and the showbread, the table, and the lights are flickering off the gold here, making it all. So you're supposed to see all of this. The curtain is blue with stars shown in. What you're doing is with pomegranates and trees all in here. This is like entering into the garden, going into this, you're starting into this new world. And then you get into this completely separate world that no one can see. But guess what? John's seeing it, right? He's being ushered into the throne room of God. That's what that's called, the throne room of God. The Ark of the Covenant is called his footstool, right? His what?
Never mind.
Yeah. Right, the hassock, the thing he puts his feet on. That's this. It, by the way, also the earth is called his footstool sometimes in Isaiah 66. The earth is his footstool. He kicks up on the earth and kind of rests. So, okay, but this is where he connects. So this is where John has gone. He's entered into the throne room of God, and he's seeing these things as he's going in. Okay, all the stuff is there. Okay, maybe, I don't know, but Ezekiel seems to picture into that too. You get it. All right, we'll do the 4 living creatures because they're fascinating. You'll want to read all of Ezekiel before you come next week as homework. No, that's a lot of work. Maybe just read like the very first couple chapters of Ezekiel if you want to, and you'll see some real comparisons to the end of chapter 4. So 4 is short, so we're already halfway through it. Plus we finished chapter 1 through 3, and we talked about structure. You got your money's worth tonight. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Thank
Do you
you.
rec- do you
Very,
recommend the
very,
book,
very
The
good.
Spaceships of Ezekiel for reading too, or no?
Say that again, Travis. What?
Do you recommend the book, The Spaceships of Ezekiel, as part of the reading too?
I don't know that book, but I probably do not recommend it.
Uh-uh.
We can talk about that next week, spaceships and what these weird creatures are in Ezekiel. Ezekiel's a weird, freaky book. So I actually preached through the entire thing for a year at my church. Sorry,
Wow.
Lori was tough.
Did they fire you?
I remember that.
And on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the recording off.
Yeah, that's probably hard.
Counseling helps.